Good evening. My name is Tanisha Spence, and I will be giving a presentation tonight on the influence of child neglect on juvenile and adult delinquency. Neglect is one of the most common types of maltreatment. Almost half of all violent crimes are committed by perpetrators under 25 years old, according to a National Institute of Justice study. Abused and neglected children were 11 times more likely to be arrested for criminal behavior as a juvenile, 2.7 times more likely to be arrested for violent and criminal behavior as an adult. The objectives tonight is to define neglect, to discuss the children of the National Longitudinal Survey of Youth, discuss the Cambridge study in delinquent group development, and discuss the social disorganization theory. These three articles helped me discover and come to my conclusion that neglect does have a founding influence on the adult and children delinquency. So, what is neglect? Neglect is defined as when you give little or no attention. It can also be defined as to leave undone or unintended, especially through carelessness. It can also be defined as an omission, which is either harmful to the child or improper, or can refer to the commission of behavior. So the first study that I read about was the Children of National Longitudinal Survey of Youth. And this survey was conducted by, with a total of three trials. One was conducted in 1979, and that was the initial trial with the age groups of 14 to 21 years of age. The second one was conducted in 1982, and this added a female group from 1979, and then again in 1994 with the children ages of 15 and older. The NLSY 79, which is the short term for this study, is a nationally representative sample of 12,686 young men and women who were 14 to 22 years old when they were first surveyed in 1979. These individuals were interviewed annually through 1994 and are currently interviewed on a biannual basis. Some of the elements that were taken into consideration during this particular research was labor market experiences, training investments, schooling and school records, attitudes, aspirations, alcohol, substance abuse, geographic residence information, and household composition, and marital and fertility histories. The results that were founded by this study is basically goes with my theory that it actually showed that child neglect was a definite enhancer to future delinquency, even among children and even into the adult years. And the little slide says, don't blame the breed for bad behavior, blame it on the owner. Because also in this study it found that the parents had a great deal of effect on how the children turned out later. So if the parents were found to be neglectful, found to be abusive, found to do anything in the maltreatment, neglect scenario, it was found that these children later turned to delinquency. The second study, the second article was the Cambridge study in delinquent group development called CSDD, and the purpose was to investigate structures amongst parenting behaviors in an attempt to gain a realistic insight into the dimensions that constitute neglect. Factor analysis was applied to 39 parental behavior variables on data from the Cambridge study in delinquent group development to explore the underlying dimensions of parental behavior that were consistent with the concept of neglect. There were a total of 411 males surveyed, Initial contact was made in 1961 and in 1962 from the ages of 8 to 9 years of age. They found these kids by kids that were registered at any of the 6 schools surrounding that area. They interviewed again at the age of 16, 18, 21, and 24. And at the age of 18, 389 of the 411 initial interviews were conducted. And of the 22 that were missing at that time, 1 had died, 1 couldn't be located, 6 had moved abroad, and 10 refused, and the other 4, the parents refused their participation. Juvenile delinquency was defined as 1 or more convictions when 10 to 16 years of age, and adult delinquency was defined as 1 or more convictions from the age of 17 to 24. Factor analysis revealed 4 different dimensions. CSDD continued study with the 4 dimensions were parental separations, disorganized, chaotic, and parental separation was defined as significant separation from natural or operative parent longer than 1 month. And I was actually surprised. I thought that when I looked further into it that it would say something like longer than a year or something, but it was actually defined as longer than a month of being separated. Disorganized and chaotic variable included, this factor included family size, overcrowding, like the amount of kids versus the amount of rooms that was actually in the house. The house cleanliness was in this area, and also any physical neglect. The other 2 that were founded by CSDD was marital harmony and parental supervision. Marital harmony was based solely off of the father's participation or lack of, and 3 variables were included in this particular factor, and it was the attitude of the father. Was he warm? Was he friendly? Was he cruel? Second was disagreement between parents. Relationship, was the relationship consistent? Was it confusing? Did they argue a lot? And then lastly was marriage of parent combined, which was it a happy marriage? Was it harmonious? Did they disagree? Was it bad, etc.? And then under the parental supervision area, it basically looked at how much leisure time was spent in and out of the home with the parents. So this study demonstrated a strong association between neglect and later delinquency. And lastly, the last article that was researched was the social disorganization theory. There are 3 models with this theory that was created, and the 3 models were poverty, geographic mobility, and ethnic heterogeneity. And with each of these, they were found to be significantly related with previous neglect. The focus of this study was on the aggregate level of relationship between structural factors and juvenile participation in crime. The necessary information was actually collected from a 1991 census in New South Wales. The key challenge was to find an aggregate level of measure of child neglect and juvenile participation in crime. The measures of neglect and delinquency were each based on a 5-year period in this study. And for this study, neglect was the strongest causal influence on delinquency, with a PATH coefficient of 0.57, more than double that of any of its other PATH coefficients. So in conclusion, all 3 studies informs my research that there is a strong correlation and association between neglect and juvenile and delinquency. And are there any questions?